Hello there and welcome once again to The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Meyers. We're here every week, meeting interesting people and dealing with topical issues. And today this is certainly topical. We're going to talk about IT risk and government compliance. And I think everybody knows this technology world is out there, but we're going to meet a couple of people today who actually are on the front lines of helping companies figure out what they need to do next.
Yeah, we're going to use a term, I think, a good bit, cybersecurity. In other words, how do you protect the information that you've got and keep it available to those who need it and unavailable to those who don't? And these two folks we've got on today know all about that and know what's percolating at various parts of the country insofar as industry is concerned, and particularly in that we're going to talk some today about what's going on at the Department of Defense. And what their programs are for
Absolutely.
that.
We have two experts in from Guernsey. We'll be right back on The Verdict.
Right now, 6 feet can feel like a long ways away. But from 6 feet, we can still smile at each other. From our doorways and our stairways, from opposite sides of the street and opposite sides of the country. Through fear and frustrations, we can remind each other that we are still here for each other. Because we can still smile at each other. And we're not going anywhere.
Military service ran in my blood, starting from my father, which joined the Navy, on the Chickasaw side, my uncle, which served in the United States Army. I'm Benjamin Espinosa, Chief Petty Officer, United States Navy, and I'm Chickasaw. I went to the Secretary of Defense's staff at the Pentagon in Washington, D.C., which ultimately led to becoming a combat support technician for Naval Special Warfare, specifically SEAL Team 10. I think to be proud and to love your tribe, to love being Chickasaw, you also have to love being American. You also have to love everything that America stands for: equality, perseverance, professionalism, and power. I want my family to know that their father is a good person, but also feels that he has an obligation to the country and to love this nation. Anything worth having is worth dying for. The military and the country owes me nothing. I owe it everything.
See more stories about the Chickasaw people at profilesofanation.com.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Meyers, and Kent's going to introduce today's guests.
Yeah, as we indicated in the open, we're going to have two guests from Guernsey and Company here in Oklahoma City, a very fine consulting firm that I've known about and worked with over the years, and they're just a wonderful group of people. We're going to have, and let me introduce now, Laura Fawcett. Laura did her undergraduate work in mechanical engineering at Southern Methodist University. She is a security consultant for Guernsey, working primarily in the area of governance, risk, and compliance. She'll be talking more about that as we go along. She has led Guernsey to attain the designation, and only the eighth company to get it, as a certified third-party organization, protection organization. She's going to talk about that as well. Matthew did his undergraduate work at USAO in Chickasha, did his master's degree from Texas A&M. He is a Marine Corps veteran, and he is a certified information systems professional. They both are experts truly in their field, and I know that they will be able to explain things for you that we could not attempt. So Matthew, Laura, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us. Happy to be here, for sure.
Guernsey has a long and rich history in Oklahoma. It's nearly 100 years old, I guess.
Absolutely.
Now.
That's right.
One thing that jumped out at me was I happened to know a little bit about how Guernsey started. They were basically part of electrifying rural Oklahoma. I mean, literally taking the electric lines and helping farmers out in western Oklahoma get electricity for the very first time. And I couldn't help but think how different this is. That was the technology of the
Yes.
day.
That's
Just
right.
getting electricity to people.
That's right.
And
Absolutely.
today, here we are at this extraordinarily high level of cybersecurity and IT, and it shows how a company has to adapt through the years. So Guernsey's pretty nimble, I would guess, Laura.
Absolutely. I think nimble's the word, and service oriented. So just as you said, Mr. Guernsey, when he started this company, Rural Electrification Act was new, and he really set his mind to going and helping build out that infrastructure. Today, I believe nearly half of the rural electric co-ops in the country still rely on Guernsey for any number of services, rate studies, financial, building out their buildings. So kind of as Guernsey grew and evolved, it was really still based on that premise. So as those companies grew and needed buildings, we got a design firm, we got architecture. Again, as we went on and there was a need for environmental studies, we went into that space. Guernsey kind of is always looking at what is needed in the community and in the country and how we can help. And so that continued to evolve. And so then physical security of those assets and really critical infrastructure as the whole. We work with the pipelines. We work with the federal government. We're a pretty big DoD, Department of Defense contractor ourselves. And so about 10 years ago, we saw a need in our client base that they needed cybersecurity help as well. That was the new threat horizon and the new kind of frontier for these companies. And so that's when our cybersecurity practice was born. And we've just continued to grow and evolve and really focus on that critical infrastructure.
That's where you come in.
Absolutely. So like Laura said, I mean, the core values of Guernsey have never changed. It's about being a trusted advisor and a trusted partner over a long period of time. And we've got the development of what we call critical infrastructure. That is private companies and government entities that if they're exploited, if they're degraded in some way, then the country comes to a screeching halt. And as Laura mentioned earlier, we saw a real need about 10 years ago, and you know, to state the obvious, we live in a very digital world, and where we rely on our digital networks and zeros and ones and IT systems to just do the basic business functions that we did 100 years ago by paper and pen or by handshake. And so our focus is really on making sure that, you know, we're trusted, we're there to be an ally, and that we're making sure that we're securing that critical infrastructure for the country.
You even have economists on staff, I
That's right.
believe, and you have some of the best testifying economists. I can attest to that.
Yes.
Around, as a matter of fact, for years, my first and only choice for a testifying economist was from Guernsey.
Yes.
And I've used a couple of them many times, and they're
Yes.
wonderful. So you really do what needs to be done for the business community.
Absolutely.
And the community in general.
Yes.
That's right.
Yes.
Let's talk about the DoD needs.
Sure. Absolutely. Go ahead.
So really, as you can imagine, the DoD we know is huge, right? And so it takes all kinds of really large companies. We know the Boeings, the Lockheeds. There's a lot of smaller businesses under there, and it's not just the guns and the bombs and the airplanes. That's kind of what we all think about at first. But to run those bases, you need water, you need wastewater, you need gas, you need power. And so really, the DoD has to secure themselves, but they've got to secure that defense industrial base. All of those companies, from the biggest of the bigs to the small machine shops in rural Oklahoma, that are a part of that supply chain. And so we work with all of those companies, not all of them, obviously, there's hundreds of thousands, but we work with those companies. And again, as part of it, we really understand what it takes. And so the Department of Defense, in securing themselves, said we have to make sure all that information we are sharing downstream with our contractors is also being protected.
Is that what this video we're going to look at is about?
Yeah, so the video kind of talks about the threat that we're facing, and then we're going to talk more about what's being done to address that threat.
Okay, let's take a look at this videotape then.
This morning, AT&T says it's investigating a huge data breach involving personal information from more than 70 million customers.
We are digging deeper into the cybersecurity problem that crippled the city of Jacksonville Beach earlier this week, causing City Hall to close.
This time, it's British Airways, Boots, and the BBC who are having to explain why their employees' personal information was compromised.
FBI Director Christopher Wray sounding the alarm over China. Let's listen.
The PRC cyber threat is made vastly more dangerous by the way they knit cyber into a whole of government campaign against us.
That's scary stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It is.
Right. I mean, and you know, it's a scary world out there. We hear about breaches and hacks of large companies, but you know, to the point of the video, this threat is everywhere. Whether it's a small company, medium, or large, and to focus it in on Oklahoma. You know, every day in this state, men and women wake up and they go to work at companies that make products, ship things, produce power that directly impacts our men and women in uniform. And it's extremely important, especially because aerospace and defense is the #2 industry in the state, that we're aware of the cyber threat and that we're counteracting that with good security practices and expertise.
Does that explain your designation as a third-party risk assessor?
Sure.
And your
So-
designation by the Department of Defense?
Absolutely. So what Department of Defense did a couple years ago, they've been working for a while on developing a set of cybersecurity standards for the defense industrial base to follow as kind of guidance for here's how we'd like you to protect this data that you have. One, to protect it from, as you saw in the video, China's planes looking like U.S. planes, their tanks. You know, we know this information is leaking out. And while all of those pieces are potentially in DoD systems, little pieces of them are in, these subcontractor systems. Yeah. And so what we're seeing is, you know, we hear that Tinker's getting attacked. People aren't getting it, but they're getting attacked tens of thousands of times a day.
That's right.
But it's easy to go out and find the information and throw that net, as Matt would say, a lot larger and try to poke holes and hit some of those smaller companies and collect those little pieces so they can build the whole picture.
Let me jump in and get us to a break. Laura Fawcett, Matthew Watson with Guernsey. We're discussing cybersecurity, government risk and compliance, a lot of interesting topics. It's Today on The Verdict. We'll be right back.
At Whitten Burridge, we're litigators. That's all we do. All of our clients, some sort of wrong has occurred to them. We try to right that wrong. Corporate America, they have all the power. It's sort of like going against an army. I like helping the underdog. That's what gets me up out of bed every day.
Our success rate is phenomenal, but that's not all they get. We care about people.
I'm very proud of what we've been able to do for our clients, and I'm looking forward to what we're going to do in the future. There's still a lot of wrongs that need to be righted.
OU Law has a history and heritage that are unparalleled. At the University of Oklahoma College of Law, we empower our students to pursue the career of their dreams. We have the highest U.S. News ranking ever achieved by an Oklahoma law school. We are the first law school in the country to launch a college-wide digital initiative. And this year, our competition teams rank #2 in the nation. OU Law, generations of excellence, limitless possibilities.
When I came to work for the ODVA, I started realizing the opportunity to take care of veterans. It's a powerful thing when you realize that you are taking care of people that made history.
Working here is a calling. It's really, really important that they don't just come here to exist. We want to give them meaning to their lives. We try to make life happy and meaningful and fulfilled for our veterans.
New year, safer you. Get your safety on. This year, let's all make it home safe. Make Oklahoma safe.
We're back on The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Meyers, and we're discussing cybersecurity with a couple of really smart people from Guernsey.
Yes, well, I think that's redundant. I think everybody out of Guernsey
as
is really
compared to
smart.
us.
Yeah,
But
well, as compared to us, yeah. That's pretty easy. Well, Laura, you were talking about the DoD certification. Now, that's great that you got it. You were only the eighth so far, only the eighth
in the country to get it. Yes.
So,
you know, I went a long way around to say, so what DoD has set out these requirements, and now they're going to kind of go do assessments and make sure everybody's doing it, so that they can make sure they stay safe and the defense industrial base stays safe. So what we did is we let them come in and assess us. So they've done the assessment, said, Guernsey, yes, you're doing what you need to be doing, and now you're going to go out on behalf of the Department of Defense and assess other organizations. So these aren't happening yet. It's coming in 2025. But we were the eighth in the country. There's about 50 now, but we're the only one based in Oklahoma. And really, back to what we said before, we're really focused on helping and supporting the Oklahoma Defense Industrial Base. So we want to really make sure they're ready.
we hear more and more about ransom. And, you know, some foreign attacker attacks a computer system in government or in private sector and says, you need to write me a big check or bad things are going to happen or you're not going to be able to continue to operate. People understand the scenarios from there.
That's right.
How prevalent is this, and do you see this as something that's going to continue to escalate?
That's right. It is a very prevalent threat. And the way that this works is there are criminal groups, but there's also other nation states that actually have military units that are focused on hacking. And their objective, their goal is, it's often to do this ransomware attack. As you mentioned, Mayor, they'll see what security holes exist in a company. Could be large, could be a small company, could be right in the middle. And if they find a way into your company, your IT system, they'll do what, as you mentioned, a ransomware attack. They'll lock your system up and send you a message that says, pay X amount, otherwise we'll either leak your data on the dark web, we'll leak your data in the public, or we'll simply delete it and your business will be dead in the water, so to speak. So it's a very vicious, very aggressive attack. We see it all the time at companies and organizations of all sizes, but here's what people need to know. If you own a small company, you need to understand this threat. You need to take ownership of it. Even if you don't own a small company, you need to be aware and you need to take ownership, again, of the data that you're sharing with others, and make sure that, before you share that sensitive data with somebody, that you're doing your research, you're doing what you need to do to make sure that you're dealing with a reputable organization.
When you get the call, is it too late? I mean, in other words, has the ransom call already come? Or are clients having a conversation or working with you before the ransom call comes in?
We've got both. We've got a lot of clients, and that's what we prefer to do. Obviously, we're in there consulting, we're advising, here's what you can do. And we take a very risk-based approach. Let's look at what your risks are. Let's tackle those highest risk things first and work our way down the list. But yeah, we work with, and a lot of times on the ransomware and those types of incidents, we're doing it with local law firms. We really think when those happen, you need good legal advice. And so we're getting called after the fact. And we're in there helping them figure out how it happened and what they can do to prevent it again. And the lawyers are then giving them the advice on how to handle the communication of it and all the other not so fun things that come with a ransomware.
So you're
attack.
behind the scenes.
We're behind
pretty
the
much.
scenes, yes.
Yeah,
That's right.
You're acting as an advisor to the legal aspects of it or directly to the management of the company.
Exactly.
That's exactly right.
Yes.
Oh, there's public information about the AT&T massive data breach.
Yes. That's right.
I suppose there are an awful lot of data breaches that don't make the news.
Oh, absolutely.
They do. I mean, practically every day they do. We see new ones. Just the client base we have, we see new ones every week. And you'll see, again, when you go back into my space with regulatory and things like that, CISA just released a proposed rule that's going to require pretty much all of critical infrastructure.
Who did?
I'm sorry, CISA, excuse me. I used one of those acronyms. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Administration. So under Homeland Security, so that's their cybersecurity and infrastructure division. So they've released a proposed rule that's going to require pretty much everyone in critical infrastructure, which is a pretty large net. We're talking hospitals, pipelines, anybody again in the defense industrial base. If you service the government, they consider you critical. There's going to be potentially cybersecurity incident reporting requirements. They're wanting to collect all that information so they can learn more and figure out how we can better, thwart these threats, and also to understand what companies are doing and, how these incidents continue to happen.
Are there other folks at Guernsey besides you two that deal with this cybersecurity area?
Yes.
Absolutely. So we've got a team of experts on staff, and to your point, I mean, they're doing all sorts of things. So we're consulting with folks that have government contracts. We're consulting with mom and pop shops and medium and large companies. And to really dovetail off of what Laura said earlier, here's the bottom line. You need to understand that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. It really is. And so there's enormous costs that are associated with this. And before the incident or after the incident, we're there to help, but we'd prefer to be on the front side of that because it's much less costly and it's much more effective.
How prevalent is this in Oklahoma? Because the ones we hear about are usually national firms.
Right.
But in Oklahoma, are you dealing with the medium and small size companies who are getting these types of attacks and perhaps having to consider a ransom payment?
Absolutely. So we deal with companies all the time that they've experienced a scenario where it's important to note that cyber criminals in other nation states, they won't necessarily go looking for somebody that's out in Guthrie, Oklahoma that owns a machine shop. What they're going to do is write a computer program that says, take a look at every single address on the internet in this regional area, which might be the center of the country, and I'm going to write a computer program that just sees how far I can get into your company. So we deal with folks all the time. This is impersonal, but these criminal groups are very aggressive, and they will do damage, and they'll steal data or destroy it, regardless of how well known you are or regardless of where you're at in the country.
If people are at home and they have just a home PC, how does what you're talking about affect them and their computer and their data and their address book, for lack of a better term? Yeah.
Absolutely. I think we can both get this, but I, at the end of the day, it goes back to taking ownership of your own data. And so if you're sitting at home, I don't own a company, I don't have a defense contract, you still need to understand that to an extent, what you don't know can hurt you. And that's not meant to scare anybody, it's just meant to say, you need to be very aware of the threats. You need to be making sure that you have identity protection in place in case that this happens. You need to make sure if your phone or your PC has security features to it, like a multi-factor authentication, you can turn that on, and that you're just doing what you need to be doing. It's much like physical security. Criminals are going to look for the low-hanging fruit. They're going to roll through a neighborhood and try to find the house that's easiest to break into. So if you just do a little bit more than others, you're going to be in a much better spot.
Absolutely. And I'd tack on to that, we see it in business, but it's in personal as well. They might get into someone, I think everybody can relate that they've seen one of their friends have a fake Facebook account. Someone went and created a new Facebook account, it looks like your friend. So stay vigilant, be slightly suspicious. When you get something, does this make sense? Was I expecting to get this email? Don't default to just clicking the link because it's there. Even if it's something you're expecting to get, maybe it's your insurance. Well, maybe don't click the link in your email. Maybe go directly to your insurance website, things like that. There's just ways that you can kind of work around the ways they're trying to be sneaky.
Laura Fawcett and Matthew Watson are with Guernsey. Matthew is a cybersecurity consultant, and Laura, you're a little bit broader in scope, but on the GRC side as well.
So kind of how that cybersecurity fits into overall business risk.
We really appreciate y'all coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you. It's good to meet you.
It's great information.
Thank you.
Thank you
Kent
for having
and I'll have
us.
a final word when we get back.
This is the epidemic of my generation. This is my HIV. This is my Black Plague.
In the midst of one of our state's largest crises,
Oklahomans are dying from this preventable and treatable disease on a daily basis.
we believe there's hope.
That little pill will cause destruction through your whole life.
Watch the entire award-winning 9-part docuseries Killing Pain, made available by Fighting Addiction Through Education at killingpain.com.
It used to be okay in hospitals. It used to be okay in movie theaters. It was okay in classrooms, restaurants, and airplanes. But thanks to a greater understanding of the dangers, that's not okay anymore. So now that we know secondhand smoke causes lifelong health problems, why is it still okay to smoke with children in the car? Bottom line, it's not okay. Let's get serious about protecting kids. Join the fight at stopswithme.com.
All children deserve a life of hope and love, but sometimes they experience a life of pain, neglect, and abuse.
When that happens, each child deserves all the quality assistance and representation that can be offered in our legal system. For more information, call 23-CHILD.
Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, helping to bring hope and love back to the lives of abused children.
You will always be mom and dad to me.
You have children coming from a different lifestyle, different mindset. You have to open your arms and really do what you have to do to have that child become a part of your family. And if it's more patience, that's what you do. Kids got to know they can trust you. And that's what we've tried to do with these kids.
You will always be mom and dad to me.
We're back on The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Meyers. We've been discussing cybersecurity as it relates to government entities and DoD contracts and other government entities and private sector. It's been an all-embracing show. We appreciate the people from Guernsey coming out to help us.
Yes, it's a critical issue at all levels of business and consumers, frankly. There isn't a day goes by that I don't get some email from somebody in my firm saying something such has happened and I need to do something awful. Anyway, we're glad that they were able to come on.
Their website is guernsey.us. Our website is theverdict.tv. We'll see you next week.